if it doesn't get resolved.
But not even President Duterte himself was able to break the budget stalemate with senators, and the House still not in agreement.
The peso saw higher volumes in the spot market as more houses priced in a weaker local currency. But investors shied away from stocks with trading volumes lower than usual.
And San Miguel Food and Beverage will be one to watch today after reporting double-digit top-line growth in its first year as a consolidated firm. Profits netted 30.5 billion pesos. Good morning, I'm Danny Laurel.
And I'm Charles Lejano. Let's get down to business.
Economic managers have slashed GDP projections for 2019 and for next year. The culprit, the reenacted budget. Bim Santos has that story.
The government's economic team is urging lawmakers to immediately pass the 2019 budget to Malacanang, warning that the longer the administration operates on a reenacted budget, the more harmful it will be to growth. Already, the Interagency Development Budget Coordination Committee reduced its growth forecast for the year to 6 to 7% from the initial 7 to 8% due to the effect of the reenacted budget. The target for next year was also scaled back to 6.5 to 7.5%, retaining only the original 7 to 8% for 2021 to 2022.
The 6 to 7% is an adjustment from the 7 to 8%, which we used to have for every year until 2022, and that is because it seems to be a foregone conclusion that the budget will be reenacted up to April.
The DBCC estimates that a reenacted budget will cut GDP growth by 0.7% to as much as 2.8% under a full year. The Bicameral Conference Committee approved the version of the 2019 General Appropriations Bill last February 8, but it has yet to be transmitted to Malacanang amid allegations of illegal modifications from lawmakers.
We therefore urge Congress to transmit the 2019 national budget at the soonest possible time to the Malacanang, so the government can sustain its investments on development priorities, namely public infrastructure and social services.
Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez said that for the first quarter alone, the government failed to spend 46 billion pesos due to the reenacted budget.
If you divide 46 billion into 90 days, that's $500 million pesos a day that we are not spending, to create jobs, that we are not spending to improve the infrastructure, that we are not spending for better healthcare, better education.
Dominguez said the government's infrastructure push missed a crucial window to jumpstart projects at the start of the year, where there is usually favorable weather. Dominguez noted that it will be difficult to spend the entire budget on the second half due to weather conditions and the pace of the government procurement system.
It's so critical and so sad that we missed the best time to start construction projects.
Bim Santos, we are One News.
And it looks like that problem is not about to go away just yet. President Duterte himself failed to break the stalemate even after he met with congressional leaders in Malacanang. Royce Nagit has the story.
Leaders of Congress were summoned by President Rodrigo Duterte in Malacanang on Tuesday night to discuss the alleged illegal realignments in the 2019 national budget. Even after the ratification of the budget proposal by Congress, senators claimed the House members in the lower chamber tweaked the budget. Amid the allegations of undue budget insertions, House Majority Leader Fredinel Castro said the president simply told them to finalize the budget.
Tapusin ang budget dahil kailangan ito ng bansa.
According to Senate President Tito Soto, the president will only sign the budget into law if he will also sign the document. For Senator Panfilo Lacson, they should just revert back to the bicameral version, as the House version, he said, contains insertions by House Speaker Gloria Arroyo. Lacson claims Arroyo allocated 25 million pesos each to her allies in Congress under the Health Facilities Enhancement Program.
Huwag nila kami pilitin na mag-violate kami ng konstitusyon. Huwag nila kami isama kung gusto nila mag-violate. In fact, since Speaker Arroyo already signed the enrolled bill, the House version of the enrolled bill. She's already prone to being charged for falsification because she is already certified on something that did not take place.
But Castro said the House only itemized lump sum appropriations and insisted that there is nothing unconstitutional with that. Sa GIP, Party List Representative Rodante Marcoleta hits back at the Senate, saying senators realigned hidden budget items worth 19 billion pesos.
2.5 billion kinuha po sa National Grooming Program ng DNR. 3 billion sa test day scholarship. Wala na po ito. Kinuha nila ito eh. 11 billion right of way. 2.5 billion foreign assisted projects.
But Senate President Soto said senators modified the budget proposal even before it was ratified by both chambers. For News 5 versus Nagit, we are One News.
With the pro-growth central bank governor and a slowing growth outlook, how is this affecting the peso and moving the markets? Danny over here will explain everything this morning. Good morning.
Explain everything, Charles. Wow, I wish. But, just to say that all of these issues that we, just showed our viewers here, which is linked to the budget, also has an impact on the growth outlook going forward, which also has a direct impact on the local currency. So let's take a look at how that has been moving in the past 10 days. It's actually been up 1 7/10%, not really a good sign, meaning it's depreciated. It closed at 52.60. That was from 51.75 the day prior. So recall, Charles, this is also on the back of several other things. The appointment of Secretary Diokno, which a lot of analysts have been saying is a pro-growth stance, meaning he could be cutting interest rates, and that could also be affecting the depreciation of the peso. He had also said that the range is healthy from 52 to 55, and so that gives actually breathing room for even more depreciation there. Now, at least 3 analysts have now revised their forecast downwards for the local currency to the end of the year after Secretary Diokno took the helm as governor and also signaled these key rates, not just the rate cut as a benchmark, but also the RRR cut for the bank reserves. And after that, the currency fell 1% on March 5th after this appointment was digested by the markets, and also 1% after these announcements on the RRR cut. So apart from that, you've also got transactions hitting 1.7 billion for 2 straight days already. That's about the most since we've seen in May 2010 in terms of selling down this currency, or at least exchanging it. Now, Security Bank's Robert Rosses says that they now see the peso at 54.5 at the year end. That was previously from 54. So, inching up towards 55 levels already. ING a bit, closer to 54. They're 54.04, but still that is compared to 53.86 that they were looking at just a few weeks ago.
Mild adjustment, yeah.
Yes, and PBCom's Alan Atienza is now also looking at 54 compared to 53. So moving towards that range that Governor Diokno is now saying, but also closer to the upper end of the range, Charles.
Well, then, we have a couple of earnings releases today, Dan. Could you tell us about what markets should be expecting?
Yes, so I'll take a step back first and tell you also how the markets close. You did mention that earlier as part of your question. So the PSE actually traded sideways. It closed 0.24% higher to 7766.15. So above 7750 there, but still not enough to go back to the 7,800 levels that we wanted to be seeing. Eagle Equities' Chris Mangan is saying that this is all because of offshore issues such as the Brexit vote. So recall that you've got a vote that's going to be coming out today in the UK, and again another vote if that doesn't push through, whether or not they'll be pushing this March 29 deadline. So a lot of eyes on that today. Thin session yesterday, just at 5 billion pesos there, and still we managed to buck the sell-off in Asia. So we managed to still close in the green, and you're going to be seeing the sectors here almost all across the board rallying, except for a couple holding firms in particular slumping 0.7%, mining and oil as well, and services down a touch. Now, who are the big gainers? First Gen, we were looking at this stock in particular after they announced hefty 65% jump in the net income earnings in 2018. So that rallied up, closing 3 8/10%. SM Prime also rallying. That was up 2 6/10%. Now that was after their parent company, SM Investments, said that the bulk of their capex would be going to this development property arm. So that enjoyed that. And also you've got worst performers. Interestingly, SMIC. So the parent company, the worst performer there, down 2 8/10%, as well as its holdings BDO. But you've also got SMC rather, down 2 7/10%. We're going to be, as I mentioned, breaking those earnings later on. Globe Telecom also closing in the red, down 1 4/10%. Now you did mention those earnings, and that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. SMC and its food unit, SMFB. Now recall that they spun off this unit last year, and this is going to be the first year of consolidated earnings for them. Sales up 14% to 286.4 billion pesos, and profits up 8% to 30.5 billion pesos. Now, what was really driving this? Ginebra actually increased sales by 19%, but you've also got the brewery up 14% and the Pure Foods arm, so the food arm, up 13%. So all across the board, double-digit growth in terms of revenue. So we did see, single digits in terms of net income, but still they are happy regardless. Ramon Ang is saying that, we saw a pretty difficult inflationary environment there, which, ate into their raw materials costs and ate into their income. But nevertheless, they managed to keep the brand strong and managed to do these good earnings. So recall that, now we're going to be looking at the SM parent, San Miguel parent, that will be expecting around 1 trillion in revenues. That's what markets are expecting to come out today. So that would have been up 23% if that comes true. And nevertheless, markets expecting actually a slide in net income of 24 billion, a contraction of 14.3%. But recall, they did spin off this unit, F&B. So we're going to be having to parse through those figures later on. Nevertheless, take a look at how San Miguel was trading at the last close. We'll see if we can actually pull up that live stock board for you there. It's actually down 0.9% to 172 pesos and 4 centavos.
Well, Danny, First Gen and San Miguel definitely wants to look out for when markets open. For now, here are the other headlines we're watching this morning. The Finance Department and the BSP say last year's drop in FDI inflows is nothing to worry about, as it is just a temporary phenomenon. Finance Undersecretary and Chief Economist Gil Beltran says that the 4.4% decrease was caused by uncertainties in the global economy. He explains that without the drop in world GDP and uptick in US T-bond rates, the country's FDI would have actually grown by almost $800 million, or about 0.25% of its GDP. Beltran also says we can expect overseas investments to recover when world conditions improve. BSP Governor Ben Diokno also says investor interest in the country remains strong. The Philippines is still likely to be one of the fastest growing countries in the region.
An independent think tank, on the other hand, says open pit mining investments could have cushioned the country from that FDI slump. Strat-based ADR Institute says investment in underdeveloped mining sites in the Philippines could have driven economic and regional growth further if they were only allowed to operate. The institute says mines that could generate an average yield of 375,000 tons per annum of copper translates to some 126 billion pesos in annual potential. Mines that can produce 36,000 ounces per annum of gold, meanwhile, are seen to generate at least 24 billion pesos per year. Stratbase says the 11 pending mining projects from 2016 had an investment proposal of 23 billion pesos. That is more than double the net inflows for 2018.
NEDA will not back the Agriculture Department's plan to ban the private sector's imports of palay or unmilled rice. Agriculture Secretary Manny Piñol says he will not allow palay imports into the country due to potential threats of pests and diseases in its shipments. NEDA disagrees, however, saying this is a business decision, considering that imports could be a source of income from millers. The agency adds, though, that they think the plan is all right offhand, but they still need to check on its tariff implications.
Vehicle sales recovered slightly in February, but it was not enough to send year-to-date figures to positive territory. Joint data from the Chamber of Automotive Manufacturers of the Philippines and Truck Manufacturers Association showed sales edging up 0.3% to 26,300 units last month from 26,100 units sold in February of 2018. Year-to-date car sales totaled 53,200 units. That's down 8% from nearly 58,000 units registered in the first 2 months of 2018.
When we return, Britain's parliament just rejected leaving the EU without a deal. Now they will have to ask the EU for an extension.
And much like the water situation in Metro Manila, trading volume and the stock exchange is also drying up. We'll speak with First Metro's Paul Angelo about the dry spell in the market. Stay with us.
Good morning. You're watching Bloomberg TV Philippines on Business World Live. Now we're checking in on the latest stories around the world from the Bloomberg terminal. American regulators reversed course and now decide to ground Boeing's top-selling 737 MAX family of airliners amid safety concerns about the crash of one of the planes in Ethiopia on Sunday. U.S. President Donald Trump says this decision comes because of the safety of their citizens is the country's paramount concern. The move is a major blow to Boeing, which has lost billions of dollars in value this week as country after country announced they were barring the aircraft from flying. The Federal Aviation Administration's expected action followed Canada's decision to halt MAX flights earlier Wednesday. Britain's parliament voted to avoid an economically disastrous no-deal split from the European Union, opening the door to delaying Brexit and radically rewriting the terms of the divorce. The House of Commons voted 321 to 278 to reject leaving the EU with no deal and is now expected to seek delay Brexit in hope of securing a better deal which markets would welcome. Speaking in the Commons, Prime Minister Theresa May announced that if a deal can be agreed in the coming days, she would ask the EU for a short technical extension to the March 29 exit day deadline. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo singled out China in his annual report on human rights abuses around the world. Pompeo said China is in a league of its own when it comes to human rights violations, citing Beijing's campaign that has put thousands of Chinese Muslims, Uyghurs, in re-education camps. Pompeo said the Chinese government had interred more than 1 million Uyghurs, ethnic Kazakhs, and other Muslim minorities in camps, which he said were designed to erase their religious and ethnic identities. U.S. President Donald Trump acknowledged concerns about the possibility that he will walk away from a trade deal. He offered to push back a summit with Chinese leader Xi Jinping until a final deal is reached. Trump says there are two ways to go about this. Either the two leaders meet to sign a pre-written deal, or they could meet to negotiate the final points of an almost finished deal. Trump's comments represent a shift in tone from late last month when he raised the prospect of signing summit with Xi. Chinese officials have grown increasingly wary of putting Xi in a position where he might be embarrassed by an unpredictable Trump or forced into last-minute concessions. U.S. stocks inch higher amidst those developments around the world. We get more updates from Abigail Doolittle, who's reporting from New York.
Stocks finished higher in Wednesday's Wall Street session. In fact, it was the third up day in a row for the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, the best streak since early January for both of those indexes, at least at one point. Now, the Dow finished higher as well, each of the three major averages up between about 0.6% and 0.7%, off of the highs, because in the late afternoon, there were two big headlines. One, the UK Parliament voted down a no-deal Brexit. Very little effect on the U.S. markets. The British pound did rally up about 1.6% at last check. But the other piece of news, President Trump saying that the FAA will temporarily ground Boeing's 737 MAX. On that, we did see a small leg lower for the major averages. For Boeing, those shares themselves fell initially, down more than 3% on that news that the FAA would be temporarily grounding its 737 MAX in the wake of the Ethiopian Airlines tragic crash over the weekend, but rebounding at the end of the day, up about 0.7%. As for sector composition, all 11 were higher, led by healthcare, and one of the top healthcare performers, United Health, up more than 1% on the news that the company will be passing along rebates directly to the consumer, really a pivot toward the Trump administration. There were also some big tech and internet winners, though. Microsoft and Amazon were among the top point boosts, and one of the biggest, in fact, the biggest percentage winner for the S&P 500 on the day, Take-Two Interactive, the gaming company, those shares up more than 6%, in fact, up nearly 7% on unconfirmed takeover speculation for that gaming company, which is trading closer to a 52-week low, and lots of issues, especially some competition, of course, from that Fortnite game. But on the day, the best performer for the S&P 500, Take-Two, up 6.9%. And in addition, we saw oil rally. Bonds were about flat to lower. So when you put that together with stocks trading higher, Wednesday's Wall Street session was risk on. In New York, Abigail Doolittle, Bloomberg News.
So deal timelines possibly stretch for Brexit and the U.S.-Sino trade agreement. And back here in Manila, markets just opening their doors to trade this Thursday. We have with us live in studio Paul Angelo, First Metro Securities. Paul, I mean, you can see here sideways trading so far this week. What is going to be happening and how to position further right now?
Well, at least for the week, we expect more volatility to continue because the Philippines is currently more affected, more sensitive to information, especially if it is in relation to other foreign markets. So, if any negative bias, any negative sentiment, we will be immediately affected by it. So actually, we are advising our clients to trade this market because it's going to be a very volatile market, and we advise them to fully take advantage of that situation. You could buy on its lows and sell on its highs. It's basically a trader's here for this year.
Very interesting points there, because some traders or analysts are saying to keep cautious and stay on the sidelines. What range would you be then seeing at if this is your play?
Well, if this is the PSEI, at least in the short term, we are expecting support levels at around 7,700 and resistances at 7,900. But if you're going to look at it on kind of a medium term, you can see that in the index, if you're going to look at it on a daily basis, it's only beginning to trend down. So at least you could trade the ranges between those downtrend channels. At least you could get go in and out repeatedly. At least you could get some gains, albeit not that big.
Okay. Now, Paul, we've also got some issues here on the home front, especially budget woes. What is your real reaction to this in terms of how the markets will be digesting this kind of information? The GDP target has now been softened a touch.
I'm pretty sure the government will be giving us an aid, will be adept, and they will try to control it as much as possible. So I don't think we should not be worried about that. At the very least, even though we have a 6 to 7% range GDP, it's still high compared to our regions, and those levels are pretty high compared to the others, and it's still growing. We're growing. We're still growing. It's quite decent actually.
So not too perturbed on how that would actually affect the markets. Now, Paul, let's move on to the net foreign fund flows. We've seen it's now 3 straight days of an outflow. Tell us what is going on here. Is there a real reversal happening? And what's in the mind of foreign investors?
Basically, right now, they're just profit taking because early on in the year, you've already registered some net foreign buyings, and some of them are already cashing in some of their gains. But if we're going to look at it on a year-to-date basis, they're actually net foreign buying of around 24 billion pesos. So as long as we don't fall within the year-to-date net foreign selling level, we are at least quite positive, at least in the short term.
Okay, how much longer is this profit taking going to be taking place? I mean, before we actually see a reversal and them flocking back in.
Then again, that remains to be seen. As I've said, the Philippine market is now more sensitive to global economic conditions, and more or less the foreign funds will take not only the local funds but also the foreign funds will have to take advantage of the situation. After all, the reason why foreign funds will be investing in the country is in order for them to make money, and by trading those ranges, at least even though it's not that big or not, at least you could cash in some gains, even if 1%, 2%. I'm already good with it.
Okay.
That's how you trade this market as of the moment. You're going to trade it. You're not going to be long as it. You're not going to be long. You're going to trade it short, but quick, and cash in as quick as possible.
So you don't seem very perturbed or risk averse at all, despite the volatility. But nevertheless, the volumes have been pretty low. So single digit in the millions there in pesos. But what is going on in even the domestic front? Why are investors still staying on the sidelines, and where are they putting this money?
Well, as far as the sentiment is concerned, at least they're still looking for some positive catalyst. But unfortunately, we do not see that as of the moment. So as soon as we see some positive catalyst, at least we could see some spikes.
Let's talk about possible catalysts there. Food and beverage unit of San Miguel, your reaction to those earnings?
It's actually quite decent, 8%. I mean, if we're going to dissect it on a quarter basis, not only FB, other consumer firms had taken a hit because of inflation worries. I think some names registered some declines, but FB managed to be at least on a high single-digit growth. So that's noteworthy. Even though some of it is a bit of a disappointment, it's not really a disappointment. At least on the lower end of the range in terms of net income, at least it's still a positive. So it's quite a good performance for FB.
Good performance. So markets, however, correcting a touch, they're down 0.6% to 106.80 after it did rally ahead of that earnings release. But take a look at how the stock has performed. The range of this stock has been very volatile. Like it has 85 pricing on the low end to 140 pricing on the high end when they were saying this share sale was going to happen. What for you is the fundamental value that you should be picking up this stock?
So for fundamental value, at least FB is one of the biggest names in terms of consumer, at least in the country. So that alone, that brand itself is already strong. So right now, I guess our target price is actually at 95 pesos.
Okay.
So most probably the reason for the downtrend right now is most of them are already cashing in some of the gains.
Okay.
So it's 106 versus our target price. That's only a double-digit growth already. And most of them has already met the resistance level at around 109, 109.10. So that seems to be a challenge going at 110. So if there's a possibility that if traders see that it's facing challenges to go beyond 110, might as well cash in your gains.
And Paul, Chairman Ang actually said that they will not be conducting the share sale in the next 12 months. And after that, the stock actually rallied. Can you explain a bit why that happened?
Rallied in FB?
Yes, after his announcement that they will not be continuing the share sale, so they cut the share sale in November in half. And he did announce that they will not be continuing the rest of the offer this year. And the market seemed to appreciate this announcement. Any insights on that?
Well, also one of the reasons why FB is key favorite, at least on our end, is because these possible share sale would mean that there would be more shares available in the market. That means more float, more investors would participate on the stock. But since they mentioned that they will not be, they won't be selling the shares, chances are they are limiting the investor share.
Correct. Yes.
So that means naturally the prices will have to go down because.
Okay, and related to that, how would this let's say pause in the share sale affect the parent company, because they might have been using these proceeds to actually fund several developments of infrastructure, for instance, for SMC? for SM?
Well, at
San
least in the
Miguel, that
SMC
is.
end, they would be, I guess they would be needing a lot of cash in order for them to finance the infrastructure requirements that they have. So I guess they will have to resort to other means in order for them to, fund these projects.
Any outlook on the earnings that are set to be released today for the parent? We were just mentioning how it's difficult to follow the stock. Not a lot of analysts actually looking at
Yes,
it.
correct.
Yeah.
Basically, just have to dissect it on per segment, per segment level. So FB registered the growth, so that's a positive. Petron registered the decline in net income. That's
Right.
quite, it's going to take a hit naturally. So Petron registered, I think, 50% decline in its net income. So, and Petron represents around 27% of the total net income contribution to San Miguel. So naturally, if that particular subsidiary, which contributes quite a chunk on San Miguel's earnings, naturally SMC will have some of the earnings of SMC will be pulled down. So,
Were you shocked at all at this 50% slump for Petron?
well, not really, because if you're going to look at the oil prices, especially in the last 2 months, it's really going down. So naturally, they will have to take a hit in terms of oil inventories.
And one last on SMC, since we're on the topic, Eagle Cement. How does this play in terms of infrastructure? Them possibly acquiring Holcim, change the game for SM?
When
SMC.
we listened to the analyst briefing of Eagle Cement, they mentioned that they're not really, they haven't really issued a statement as to whether they would really acquire Holcim, but I think it was the chairman who said that they're interested in it.
Yes.
So I guess for me that still remains to be seen if they're really going to acquire it or not, because there are conflicting views between the president and the chairman. So I guess they have to sit down first and finalize it. Then if they do acquire it, chances are the price of Eagle will go up also with Holcim, because it would be beneficial for the both of them.
Consolidation. Very interesting points there. Now let's take a look at some of your stock picks here. You're still in infrastructure, mega wide. Tell us why.
Well, basically, we're banking on the infra play of mega wide. As of 9 months of 2018, the airport operations of mega wide is already contributing around 51% of the total net income.
Right.
And we have a projection, I have tourist arrivals projection in Cebu Airport that it will grow at around 10%. So naturally, if the airport operations will grow at a double-digit rate, chances are mega-wide, the net income of mega-wide will also be pulled up. So also to mention, we have continuous infrastructure rollouts with mega-wide, and they're going to continue to bid. And we haven't even factored those bids in case they could get one, in case they submit unsolicited proposals and they are approved. That would be an additional income for the company. And we haven't even factored those projections. We haven't even factored those projections in our model. So.
Megawide was actually one of the crowd favorites of last year, and you did see that rally. So how much more upside are you still seeing? Will it be returning to those years last year, especially since now they have some recurring income from these projects that they got OPS for?
Well, our target price for megawide is 29 pesos.
Wow,
So you just have to do
higher.
the math. So at least more than double-digit growth. I mean, it's mid double-digit
without perspective, even
without the additional potential unsolicited proposals.
Very interesting. And now finally, your last pick, property space, Mega World. A lot of strands also on this. Tell us why.
Well, Mega World is a strong brand already in terms of office supply, and I think a lot of investors lately, Chinese, the Pogos, are already having strong demand in terms of office supply. So with that alone, I guess the Mega World brand will already have a good name with it. So they're going to, I think their sales will already be at that level. So. At the very least, they could at least hit good net income. Our target price, by the way, for Mega World is 6 pesos.
Okay,
But
so
in terms of
6
technical analysis, I guess we should begin taking profits as of the moment and wait for support levels at around 5 pesos.
Around 5 pesos. So just one last question on the property space on Mega World. They did announce this 30 townships by the end of the year. That's very interesting and a very big capex play and a diversified play. Can you compare that compared to the revenue streams of other property players and them trying to do residential, office, and commercial all in one place.
Well, the thing about Mega World is they're going to integrate it really into a single property. I mean, it's also being done by other property firms, but what distinguishes Mega World from the others is that they're actually integrating it into a community. So that means for whatever demand you have, Mega World is there, and he can offer as many things as he can offer. If you have demand for office, for residential, for commercial, Mega World has it all also.
So very interesting picks there, Mega World and Mega Wide, jumping on the property space and also the infra play. Paul Michael Angelo of First Metro Securities, thank you so much.
After the break, Ayala Corporation is ramping up its 2019 spending plan, with bulk of the spend going to Ayala Land and Globe. We'll have the details next. And no end in sight just yet for the water crisis in Metro Manila, and the government now wants to get involved. Good morning. You're still watching Business World Live. As the water crisis continues in Metro Manila, Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles says the government is now drafting an executive order which will fix inefficient water management practices flagged by economic planners. Nograles says the cabinet has been working on the draft even before the water crisis to help the government resolve issues involving water supply and distribution. The palace official notes that economic planners had flagged water management issues in the 2017 to 2022 Philippine Development Plan, which Nograles says has problems with the development, utilization, and management of water-related services. The health department, meanwhile, received assurances from water providers that hospitals in Metro Manila will be prioritized and provided adequate supply of water. To tell us more about measures being taken to resolve the water shortage, let's hear this report by Bev Verdera.
Around 35 barangays in Metro Manila and Rizal still experience water interruption, according to Manila Water. The number is also apart from those households experiencing poor water pressure. The company sees that this situation will last until summer.
Based on our projections, given the level of La Mesa and given what they used to enjoy in terms of demand, this will last through the summer, although there will be points wherein supply will increase.
Maynilad's promise to give 50 million liters per day to Manila Water will be a big help. But despite this, rotational water interruption will still continue.
Ang iniiwasan ko lang po is magbigay ng false expectations na gaganda na. We may have to do more aggressive rotational interruption in order to fill up the reservoirs.
Until now, La Mesa Dam's water level, where Manila Water gets its reserve, remains to be critical, while water allocation from Angat Dam is still limited. But Metropolitan Water Works and Sewerage System says the lack of conveyance tunnels is the reason behind Manila Water's low water supply. This is where the water flows from the point of collection to the facilities for treatment until distribution and disposal.
You see, our tunnels are old. Some are vintage 36, 1936, 1956. And I think this one reason, while Manila Water is not saying this, there's probably then one reason why Manila Water is not getting the whole of the 1,600.
MWSS is pushing for the conveyance tunnel project that will serve as an avenue for water from Angat Dam. They are also eyeing the Cardona Rizal treatment plant and Kaliwa Dam as a possible water source in the future. The dam is set to finish its construction on 2023, but the budget for the project will not be deducted from the consumers yet. Starting March 14 and 15, Manila Water customers will experience water service interruptions lasting 6 to 21 hours. This will affect the following cities in Metro Manila: Makati, Mandaluyong, Manila, Marikina, Parañaque, Pasig, Pateros, Quezon City, San Juan, and Taguig. Parts of Rizal will likewise experience water interruptions including Taytay, San Mateo, Rodriguez, Cainta, Binangonan, Antipolo, and Angono. The schedule of water interruptions can be seen at Manila Water's Facebook page. For News 5, Beverdera, we are One News.
Lawmakers are also concerned over the water shortage that has hit some parts of Metro Manila. Senators will conduct a hearing on Tuesday to get to the bottom of the problem. They plan to invite water concessionaires, regulators, and a few government officials to shed light on the issue. Senate Public Services Committee Vice Chair J.V. Ejercito is urging the government to build another dam and to look for other water sources to service the needs of the growing population. Over at the lower chamber, Magdalo Congressman Gary Lejano and Bayan Muna Representative Carlos Zarate have also filed separate resolutions urging Congress to investigate the water crisis that has particularly affected residents in Manila's East Zone. Bayan Muna wants to hold concessionaires accountable for the problem, saying they have failed to prepare for El Nino. Lejano, on the other hand, wants to clarify rules on how supply from dams are being managed. He's worried that prioritizing household consumers over farmers and power generators might lead to serious security concerns.
And the water crisis isn't only limited to residents in some areas of the metro. Two towns in Davao del Sur are under a state of calamity due to the dry spell. Farmers in Hagonoy and Matanao fear that their crops might not make it through the summer. The Agriculture Department says the drought has already affected nearly 12,000 hectares of rice fields in the whole Davao region. It's also warning consumers that prices of farm goods might go up in the coming months because of the damage that El Nino might inflict on agricultural areas. The department promises to assist local farmers.
Yung water level po is bumaba na siya, and apektado po yung mga tinatawag nating high value crops. Ang direct effect talaga nito is yung mabawasan yung production ng ating mga farmers, especially ang income nila. Nag-line up kami ng mga activities like we're planning to conduct cloud seeding operation po para ma-save po natin yung mga farms na pwede pang i-save and ma-maximize yung production nila.
Let's check in on the latest news from the corporate front. After announcing that 5% jump in net income, Ayala Corporation is ramping up its spending for 2019 to 262 billion pesos to expand its property and telco businesses. The bulk of the conglomerate's war chest.
Cebu Pacific has not entered into any commercial agreements for the acquisition of new aircraft.
And East West Bank reported close to 12% drop in its net income in 2018. From 5.1 billion pesos in 2017, East West ended 2018 with just 4.5 billion pesos. That is on the back of net revenues falling close to 1% to 25.5 billion pesos. The bank attributed this decline to lower margins, lower fixed income trading profits, and on the suspension of its rural bank's lending program to teachers in the first half of 2018. East West net interest income, though, grew over 4% last year as growth in consumer loans offset those lower interest margins.
The SEC has approved the application of Infradev Holdings to incorporate the Makati City Subway for the Underground Railway project. This means the subway will become a wholly owned subsidiary of Infradev, formerly IRC Properties. The firm will have an authorized capital stock of 16 billion pesos. After the break, Spotify has filed an antitrust complaint against Apple for allegedly squeezing rival music streaming services. The details next.
And we'll dive back into the trading action as markets simmer. Bloomberg TV Philippines returns. Stay with us.
You're still watching Bloomberg TV Philippines on Business World Live. Let's get the latest in the tech world from our partners in Bloomberg Tech.
I'm Emily Chang in San Francisco with a look at the top tech headlines. Spotify is taking on Apple. In a new complaint, the music streaming service argues Apple should be probed by EU antitrust regulators over how it allegedly squeezes rival music services by taking a cut of all sales on its app store. Spotify said the iPhone maker has created an untenable situation by imposing a 30% tax for apps that compete with Apple Music. The company is now seeking action from the European Commission. Uber is ramping up for what could be one of the 5 biggest IPOs ever in the United States. Bloomberg has learned that the ride-hailing service has added several banks to the list of underwriters, among them Bank of America, Barclays, Citigroup, and Allen & Co. Morgan Stanley is leading the IPO along with Goldman Sachs. The company could be valued at as much as $120 billion. And Roku saw its biggest decline since November Wednesday after 2 brokers downgraded the stock. Loop Capital cut its view, citing an excessive valuation following a massive advance. Separately, Macquarie downgraded Roku shares to neutral, expressing concern over the company's ability to compete in the ad market against bigger media companies. Those are the top tech headlines. I'm Emily Chang in San Francisco. This is Bloomberg.
Let's now throw it back to you, Danny, for a quick check on early movements at the PSE.
Well, Charles, this Thursday has proved a bit shaky, at least at the start. We're now hovering well below 7750 at 7743.13. That's a slide of 0.3%. All shares also sliding at the same pace. Now, you're going to be seeing industrials bringing down the index. That's down 1 2/10%, as well as financials down, 0.4% right now. Only services up 0.8%, and mining and oil bucking that downtrend. So this, amid sideways trading, but also our analyst earlier on, Paul Michael Angelo of First Metro, did say it might be time to continue profit taking there for some of both foreign investors leaving the local bourse, but also domestic players as well. Now, let's take a look at who are the standout players. So you're going to be seeing ICTSI, all of these woes on the water shortage there. ICTSI up 2.5%, despite the fact that they do still have some issues in the Sudan port terminal. You've got also telco players up a touch right now at PLDT up 1 0.8%. Globe as well up 1 2/10%. Ayala companies, interestingly, all in the green right now. We don't see Manila Water there though right now, but you do see Ayala Corporation. They did mention they're upping their war chest there and putting several of their money into Ayala Land and also Globe Telecom, which are enjoying those bump ups. But take a look at who are the worst performers. First Gen correcting there, down 2 0.8%. That's after it did jump jump pretty hefty after it did report a 65% jump in its net income for 2018 and did enjoy one of the best rallies in several months. Now actually paring back a touch, you're also going to be seeing URC, which also was one of the ralliers yesterday, correcting to down 2 4/10%, as well as Mega World down 1 9/10%. Charles.
Danny, we touched on Eagle Cement earlier with our guest. What's Bloomberg Intelligence saying about the cement industry in general?
Absolutely. So I've taken out these 3 cement players for you here. That is, of course, Wholesome, Eagle, and Cemex. Now, this from Bloomberg Intelligence, they're mentioning the stability of the Philippine cement market will be dependent on, first, how they are managing to expand capacity, second, less competition on imports, and also more construction projects. So these are important things to be watching out for, Charles. First of all, Bloomberg Intelligence is saying competitiveness is an issue for the cement players. Recall that the government did impose a provisional tax on the imports, and that might actually be improving the margins of these companies because import prices are about 14% lower than what our domestic players, particularly Wholesome and Cemex, are the biggest players in terms of domestic cement there. So that might have an impact. But, you know, you also have these issues on the budget that might be derailing several infrastructure projects that might also hamper the movement of these stock prices, and also whether they're actually able to bag these construction projects. Nevertheless, Wholesome, you know, quite flat. They're quite unchanged, really, for these 3 players as of the moment. But that's a first look into this business day, this March 14, 2019. I'm Danny Laurel.
And I'm Charles Lejano. We are One News.